than ever. The USRRC comes this week to Minneapolis. The Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota is up next. And the question remains, can anyone keep the Dyson Fords in sight? Welcome to downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota this weekend. The USRRC's Can-Am and GT machines ready to do battle for an hour and 45 minutes here on a 1.6-mile street circuit. It's great to have you with us this Sunday afternoon. I'm Rick Benjamin. We've got a special treat joining us today. A driver who just crawled out of his race car a few moments ago. Paul Gentilozzi just took his AutoLink Corvette to his 5th NTB Trans Am victory of the season, his 5th win in 6 starts, and Paul has agreed to join us as our expert analyst here this weekend. Welcome to the broadcast. Great to see you. Congratulations on another victory.
Well, it's wonderful to be here in Minneapolis. I can't say enough for the big crowds that turned out for this event. They watched the NTB Trans Am, and the charity, the Children's Cancer Hospital here, we're going to raise more money than ever for them.
You've driven all the cars that we're going to see, all the types of cars we're going to see here. You've driven the open cockpit Spiders, the Can-Am type cars, the GT machines. What kind of race will we see here today?
Well, durability is a big issue. All the fans should watch the cars on the main straightaway because there's going to be lots of air time. An hour and three-quarter here is like an endurance race anywhere else.
Be a test of man and machine today. The Can-Am cars a little bit quicker around here than the top GT machines, but let's find out how both classes are going to attack this race. First to the Can-Am pit area, actually the front straightaway, Greg Creamer.
Well, gentlemen, they were no less lethal in qualifying. The Dyson, Riley, and Scott Ford swept the front row. James Weaver in the number 16 car on pole. Now, Weaver was feeling very sick this morning. He's a little better now. We asked him how he's doing. He said he'll be fine as soon as he can put the hat on and get underway in this number 16 Riley and Scott Ford. Now, the car that's going to line up next to him, the number 20 team machine, is being driven by Dorsey Schrader and Elliott Forbes Robinson. And Elliott's getting tremendous fuel mileage. They might be able to make this race in just one stop instead of a stop and a splash. And in terms of speed, Dorsey Schrader's warm-up time almost a second quicker than Weaver's pole time this morning. This car is quick, guys.
As we showed you at the top of the broadcast, the Dyson Fords have certainly been strong. They've been dominant in USRRC competition so far here in 1998. But the GT machines, there are 3 categories of them, GT 1, 2, and 3. They may have something to say about this before the afternoon is over. Let's find out how the top GT pilots are planning to attack things today. Here's John Bisignano.
Well, it's going to be Doc Bundy and Johnny O'Connell that will be piloting this beautiful number 4 Panoz. Now, this is a name that has brought back pride to GT manufacturing to the USA. Just located right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, they have proven themselves competitive throughout Europe and North America. Their plan here is to go from their pole position in GT1 straight to the flag. They want to make it a flag-to-flag victory.
They'll certainly be trying hard. They've got a couple of great drivers ready to settle up in that Panoz car number 4. We're live on Speedvision with the USRRC Can-Am and GT machines in Minneapolis. We'll be right back. Our coverage of the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota being brought to you today by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Welcome back to Minneapolis. The Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota, the USRRC Can-Am and GT machines ready to do battle. We've got an hour and 45 minutes of racing. An endurance event, a timed event today. And these teams and drivers will do battle over a 1.6-mile, 13-turn street course. And Paul Gentilozzi will take a look now at our Porsche track map. You could take us around. You've just come off this racetrack. What's the most difficult part of this circuit as we take a look at that map?
Well, there are really 2 areas of concern. As we come down the front straightaway past the start-finish line in the Can-Am cars at about 170 miles an hour, turn 1 braking area is quite rough, and it's a 90-degree turn. Once you're into the chicane area, 2 and 3 are still a little slippery. The grip is getting better, and it's a tough place to pass from. All those brave guys that want to get by you are on their way in number 1. Turn 4, 5 are a second gear turn that require rhythm and very little braking from the driver. Out of 5, we're from second gear to third gear on the way to 6, back to second gear. Another short burst, 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all the same. Got to watch out for the manhole covers, though. 10 leads on to a short straightaway that is the toughest braking zone and where we see the most driver mistakes going into number 11, the pit straight turn. It's downhill and off camber. You got to be careful there. That's where my pal Brian Simmel bit it in the Trans Am race. 11 to 12 is important. Again, a tough break zone, and then back to that all-critical straightaway.
Got a couple of 90-degree right-handers to get you back onto the main straightaway as we take a look at the Dyson pilots saddling up. They'll be starting on the lead row. Let's take a look at our BMW starting lineup this afternoon. On the pole, James Weaver in his Riley and Scott Ford from the Dyson stables ran 76.4 miles an hour. Elliott Forbes Robinson in the 20 car will line up alongside in row number 1. The second row, the AVE Ferrari. That's the Bill Dollahite Mike Davies machine. And outside, the Panoz, the only one here this weekend, the GTR car that's in GT1. Doc Bundy will start in that car. Row 3, Scott Schubot in the Camperdam machine. Car number 8, the support in that Can-Am machine. And Vic Rice will start the Mosler Raptor, another GT1 car, in that third row in the number 6 spot. Starting 7th today in one of the BMWs, one of Tom Milner's cars. This is the 6th car, the Yokohama Fina machine. Peter Cunningham and Brian Simo will share that car. And on the outside, starting 8th, the Kudzu Chevy, the 95 car, Tom Volk and Jared Schrader. Row 5, Ross Bentley and another one of the Milner Corporation BMWs, car number 10. And outside the 07, that's a Porsche 911, Danny Marshall and Darren Law. 6th row, the 06 in GT3, a Porsche. Trip Goolsby and Rick Polk will share that machine. And outside, the Oppenheimer Racing number 26, that's Eric Johnson and James Oppenheimer. The 7th row, one of the Mazdas in the field, the 75 car. This is a GT2 machine, Cameron Worth and Scott Sansone. And the Denaba Buick, one of the Can-Am cars, A.J. Smith and Joaquin DeSoto. The 92 car, and Smith will start in that automobile. Next row, the 86 car. That's the automobile, the first Union Porsche of Steve Marshall and Cole Scroggum. And alongside in GT2, the 52, the Easton Prop Porsche, David Russell and Bill Stitt. We take you back to the 9th row, the Johnson Autosport Porsche 993, Bob Johnson and Tom McGlynn, and alongside the Hawk Chevy, or actually it'll be Terry Bootson and the Champion STP Porsche. A couple of cars did not make it to the start today. This is quite a story. The Champion Porsche number 38 caught fire yesterday in practice and qualifying. They didn't get a qualifying time. They'll line up in 18th spot on the field. Back with more in Minneapolis. Welcome back to the streets of Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota on Speedvision today. Rick Benjamin and Paul Gentilozzi in the booth, and we're really pleased that Paul could join us as we cover the USRRC Can-Am and GT machines for you. Cars are underway, ready to group up for the start. We have some in-car pictures to show you this afternoon. We'll be riding along in the Ferrari of Bill Dollahite, the 88 car. Dollahite will start toward the front here today. In fact, he qualified 3rd with his co-driver, Mike Davies, and they'll line up in the 2nd row. Also, we'll be taking you for a ride in one of the Yokohama BMWs, one of Tom Milner's machines. Peter Cunningham and Brian Simo will run this machine today. And you know Brian quite well, Paul. He had a tough Trans Am outing earlier today, as you mentioned.
Well, Brian really is trying hard. The team's starting to come together. They're working hard, and I'm a tough guy to chase.
Yes, you are. Well, anyway, we'll be pleased to ride along with Petey Cunningham and with Brian Simo and with his brother Mark and Ross Bentley. They'll be starting 9th today in another of the Milner cars. This is the 10 car in GT3. So we've got a variety of views for you here this afternoon. The 6 car will be in GT2. And we're going to show you the car that had quite a bit of problem here this weekend. One of the main contenders in GT1, the Champion Porsche. This is the Porsche GTR 1. Yesterday, that car caught fire during practice and qualifying. They worked till 3 o'clock this morning, Paul, trying to get that thing put back together. Well,
Fires before a race. I mean, it's unfortunate when this happens, but turbocharged cars make a lot of heat. And when you have 2,000 degrees, you can have a fire. We had it happen in '94, 2 hours before the start of the 24-hour Le Mans.
Tough weekend, certainly, so far for Terry Bootson and Bob Wallach, who will team in that car. And Wallach, of course, at Le Mans just a couple of weeks ago came oh so close to winning once again, coming home 2nd in one of the factory Porsche entries. And they will line up shotgun on the field today.
Well, those who know Bob, like I know Bob, he and Terry are not going to be real patient coming up through the field. So I don't envy the GT2 and 3 guys. They're going to be aggressive.
This is a busy part of the season for these teams. Many of them, of course, running not just the USRRC, but also the Pro Sports Car Series that you see here on Speedvision so often. They raced last weekend in Road Atlanta, and some of the cars just needing a break this week. So the entry list a little down from what we might normally see. 22 cars originally entered. We'll have 18 taking the green flag here today. Safety car headed in. We should be set for green this time by. James Weaver will have the pole in the 16. Elliott Forbes Robinson will start the 20 car for the Dyson stables. On row number 1, the 2nd row, the AVE Ferrari, Bill Dollahite and Mike Davies, and Doc Bundy and Johnny O'Connell sharing the Panoz, the silver Vistion number 4 that you'll see a lot of here this afternoon.
I'm always curious to watch the starts of these races from a remote position. There's somebody in the pack that's going to win the race this first turn on this first lap, and it usually makes a mess.
You've got an hour and 45 minutes of racing to come. We're glad you're with us on Speedvision. The green flag waving here in Minneapolis. One of the cancer kids getting the honor of dropping the green over the field today, and we're underway. And the two Dyson cars leading the field down into the first turn. There's Bundy and the Panoz settling into third spot. Looks like the 16 of Weaver will be your early leader. And there's the Raptor sticking right in there with the group. Dollarhide gets kicked back to fourth.
Well, you know, the Raptor has a great big engine. Almost 6.5 liters. Lots of torque and lots of big horsepower.
Vic Rice and Shane Lewis sharing that Raptor machine. Big Dyson cars coming through the corner.
Vic Rice has raced a lot of the Trans Am type cars, the GTA cars in California. He's used to these bigger, heavier cars, and I think we'll see Vic do a real good job today.
Take a look at Dollarhide there, who's dropped back now into fifth spot. The Panoz moves into third. Doc Bundy at the wheel there. Dollarhide up through the gears. You've driven these Ferrari 333s.
This is really not a race course for the Ferrari. The Ferrari has what we call long legs. Big horsepower at high RPM, low downforce. The Riley Scott cars that Dyson has are big downforce and big torque. Should be a real advantage today.
And they've been very stout, of course, all season long. The 16, car of James Weaver and Butch Leitzinger off to the early lead here today. EFR and Dorsey Schrader will share the 20, and they're in second spot right now. Look at Bundy taking a look inside, coming into that tough corner.
Well, I don't think Doc will be too aggressive too early. That's really not his reputation. Butch Leitzinger and I have been teammates a couple times in the past, and he spent a lot of time over the last few weeks getting data from our team, looking at throttle positions from our Trans Am car to give him some idea.
This, of course, that the USRRC machines have not run on before. This is the first time they've been on the bill along with Trans Am here in Minneapolis, so a new experience for a lot of these drivers. And they don't run many street courses either with these machines.
The last time they ran a course like this was Dallas 2 years ago. These cars run within a half inch of the ground, and we have some irregularities in these streets that don't really make it comfortable for them as drivers.
Two Dyson cars, of course, off to the early lead. The Raptor has settled into third spot, or rather the Panoz, we should say. Let's take a look at the champion Porsche, the 38 car. He is on the move, up to 13th last time by, and Bootsen's gobbled up a couple of more here.
Well, the Porsche is built for 48 hours of competition.
Yeah.
Those cars are generally pretty indestructible. A race like this, he'll be able to go very, very hard. And we want to know, too, that they're grooming these cars for future endurance races. So they want to punish them a little bit, see what it takes to break them.
That car won last week in GT1 at Road Atlanta in Pro Sports Car competition. So that machine comes off a very successful early part of the season here. Take a look back at the 38 car from one of our other onboard looks. Look at how quick that Porsche is.
That must have been from one of the BMWs.
Yeah.
You know, they're as fast in the corners, but they only have about 400 horsepower. The Porsche has well over 650.
So Bootsen doing a nice job getting up onto the main straightaway, gathering up another spot. We'll take a look at the gap now from the lead back to the 38 car. They've jumped to 10th already. They've moved up 8 spots here in just the first 2 laps, and there's another position.
Well, the BMWs are real good under braking because they don't weigh very much, but the carbon brakes on the Porsche GT1 car are a significant advantage. They know that they can punish the brakes under stopping for an hour and 3/4 and never worry about losing their efficiency.
That was a move for 9th, so Boutsen 9th in the 38 car. That drops Speedy Cunningham back to 10th in car number 6 of the GT2 category, the Yokohama BMW, the Tom Miller stables. And I wonder if they may not be having a little early trouble, or they're just taking it easy. They've dropped back a few spots.
Well, I think they're pacing themselves. They know that they really have the right car to win this race, and the worst mistake you could do would be to go out too aggressively and try to race cars that are out of your class or faster than you.
With the short entry list, there are 3 GT1 machines in the field here today, the Porsche being one of them, the Panoz being the other one, and then you've got a third car in that category, the Mosler Raptor, also in GT1 this weekend. So it's still the Dyson cars, the 16, James Weaver at the wheel. We've seen that car win a couple of times this year.
Well, you know, James has kind of learned a driving lesson this weekend.
Really?
Our pal Dorsey Schrader has been faster most of the time. Dorsey, of course, knows this racetrack from having been here a couple times. And I think that it's great when Trans Am drivers get to go to these other series and show their talent.
Good battle a little further back. The 8 car, Scott Schubot and Henry Camperdam sharing that support net machine. They're battling it out for 6th and 7th. Bill Dollarhide's car in the mix there. And Tom Volk and Jared Schrader in the 95. That's the black and yellow machine. So good Can-Am battle a little further back in the pack. There's the Raptor sitting there in 4th spot right now. So this is for 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And here comes Boutsen and the Porsche catching him quickly.
Well, you know, I don't know what happened, why all these guys have chosen yellow as the color of the day. But we
Makes
got
it tough for us, doesn't
yeah, we got 4 yellow cars in a row, and this Porsche is gaining on them at a pretty good rate. I think he'll be able to go by them one at a time in at least 3 or 4 laps.
Battle for 5th back through 9th. In the early going here on the streets of Minneapolis. The USRRC Can-Am and GT machines, part of the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. Let's head to pit road. John Bizignano.
Well, we're with Terry Boutsen's co-driver, Bob Wallach. Bob, first of all, a lot of problems with the car. What went wrong in practice and qualifying?
Well, we had an oil leak on the engine during practice, and obviously Thierry was driving, but he couldn't smell it, he couldn't feel it, he couldn't see it, so the car caught fire. And even so, the fire was put out very soon. It made a lot of damage on the electric wires, all the tubes and everything inside the engine compartment. So we had to take the engine out, change the engine, rewire everything.
Well, it looks like the changes have gone well. You're running very strongly now.
Yeah, but then in the warm-up, we had a problem with the turbo, and we had to fix that. But then it's
Okay, more and more problems, but they're running strong now, guys. He's moving up the field.
They are gaining ground quickly. Coming up on Scott Schubot in the 8 car, sitting 6th. So Boutsen at the moment is 7th. I don't think he's going to be content to sit there for very long.
Terry's car looks like it's handling really, really well. He's a very patient, smooth guy. No wasted motion. He knows that there's going to be a yellow eventually in this race, probably before the pit stop. So all he has to do is get close enough to the leaders to be within striking distance.
This is a battle for 6th. You're watching the 38, the champion STP Porsche, chasing down the Can-Am machines. Meantime, the Dyson Fords have scooted off to a nice lead. Back with more in Minneapolis in a moment. Welcome back to the streets of Minneapolis. The Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. The USRRC's Can-Am and GT machines on the track. I'm Rick Benjamin alongside Trans Am star Paul Gentilozzi. John Bizignano and Greg Creamer on pit road for us today on Speedvision. James Weaver out front of the 16 car. Right behind him, Elliott Forbes Robinson in the 20. Sitting 4th is the AVE Ferrari, the 88 car. Mike Davies and Bill Dullight share that machine. Davies driving. Paul, what's he going through around this racetrack?
Well, first of all, this is a very, very stiff platform race car. It is a sequential gearbox with 6 forward speeds, which means that, like a motorcycle, there's no H pattern. You just pull it back or push it forward. Low downforce, so he's fighting to keep the front of the car planted at these very, very low speeds. Now, this car was actually built for Ferrari by Gianpaolo Dallara, who's had all the success in the IRL. Their factory near Bologna, Italy, constructed these cars as a project that got started by Andy Evans and Piero Ferrari. They cost a lot of money, about $1 million when they were new, ready to race with an engine. And Andy sold this team to the Dolomite team, and they've really done a good job at getting here and being prepared. He looks like he's struggling as he comes down the front straightaway. They're running these engines now at about 10,500 RPMs.
Wow.
They were originally designed for almost 14,000. This engine package came from the Formula One program. The size was expanded to make the engine a little larger. When I first drove them at Daytona, we were using 12.5 for an RPM limit, and they had well over 750 horsepower. It looks now like he's struggling a little bit with turn-in. As you can see his hands moving, the car pushes on the way into the corner, he overturns, and what that creates on the exit is what we call an oversteer, or the back of the car wants to slide out. He's struggling, turning, and then has to catch it on the exit.
Mike Davies steering the car at the moment. They are riding in 4th spot behind the 2 lead Dyson machines. There's the 20 of Elliott Forbes Robinson running in 2nd behind his teammate James Weaver. Let's go to pit road. Greg Creamer.
Well, we're standing by with the guy. Well, I have to explain it, Dorsey. Of course, the last couple of years, when you were running against Paul, I don't think he said this, but he's calling you our friend Dorsey now. But we were wondering about the strategy. You had indicated there was a possibility you might be able to do this race in one stop because of EFR's mileage. He's looking awfully racy to be trying to conserve.
Well, he's just keeping up with James's pace. James was real ill this morning, didn't feel well. They wanted to kind of distance themselves into 1st and 2nd and then ride. Of course, Elliott's got a little bit of draft going on, pick up the fuel mileage. He's getting awesome mileage. It's not just Elliott. there's some differences in the motor programming. The mapping on the motors is different. We're going to push the envelope. We're going to try to win it with that.
Obviously, you need some help, I would guess, with yellows, though, to really make that one-stop strategy play out, comfortable.
Well, yellows would be our buffer. That would give us the cushion. Right now, if it goes green, we're looking at maybe being able to make it anyway, but it's really pushing the envelope. Yellows just give us a icing on the cake, so if nothing happens here, I'm going to go in the back straightaway and cause a nuisance.
And keep in mind, after the time he turned this morning in the warm-up, Dorsey doesn't want to conserve. He wants to run.
There are your two Dyson machines coming up on a couple of the slower GT2 and 3 cars. They are leading by a wide margin here, but the gap between the two Dyson cars is about a quarter of a second, so it's a tight battle here. And take a look at this. Terry Boutsen has brought the Porsche GTR1 up to 4th spot now. He's gotten by Dolomite's machine, he's gotten by Scott Schubot, and he is up knocking on the door of the Panoz, and that'll be a battle for GT1 honors today. As we watch that 38 machine work down the short straightaway and take it to the inside, make one pass there. He's heading toward the main straightaway. Is this car a car that's capable of winning overall here, Paul?
Oh, I really think that it is. One of the things that the Porsche has that most of the other cars don't have is a little boost knob on the dashboard. He can make horsepower be effective for him everywhere. Now, they've designed this engine package for 24 hours or more. I'm sure they've got the boost at max, making big-time torque and power.
The champion Porsche team, they've been very strong all season. As we said, they won GT1 last week at Road Atlanta. They're 4th overall. Bob Wallach will finish up today for that team. A couple of guys that, I'll tell you, if you had to pick a team of drivers for an endurance event, you'd certainly like that pairing of Boutsen and Wallach with all the history they've got.
Well, I've never driven with Bob Wallach, but a lot of friends and other teammates I have. Bob is one of the more controlling drivers. He wants to make sure that he spends all the time in the race car at the endurance race so that it's safe for all the other drivers that are with him.
How thoughtful of him and kind.
Bob is really a thoughtful guy.
Well, Terry Boutsen at the moment doing a terrific job. Remember, they started 18th. We've only run 9 laps. They've come to 4th spot. Here's the car that's 3rd overall, the Panoz, with Doc Bundy and Johnny O'Connell at the wheel today. And there's the gap back to the 4th place Porsche overall. There you see the Dolomite and Davies Ferrari running 5th overall. Boutsen's gotten by that car. And here we go, the GT cars up onto the main straightaway. I hear this Panoz is a lot of fun to drive with that mid-engine design and all that Ford horsepower.
You know, it reminds me of the old Ford Probe GTB car that won at Elkhart Lake about 10 years ago. And it's an interesting technology. That car was designed by Renard. And they've done a magnificent job. It is really not good on this kind of racetrack. Now, it has a Winston Cup spec 358 cubic inch engine with electronic fuel injection. Probably makes well in excess of 650 foot-pounds of torque.
Wow.
Big time torque numbers. It's got a small tire, a little bit smaller tire than the Porsche has.
It'll be interesting to see that battle. They are 3rd with the Panoz. There are your 2 lead cars. James Weaver in the 16, Elliott Forbes Robinson in the 20. Back with more in Minneapolis in a moment. Welcome back to Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota on Speedvision, the USRRC Can-Am and GT machines in action today. Rick Benjamin alongside Paul Gentilozzi, the Trans Am star, who's here with us in the booth today. We're pleased to have Paul along. On pit road, we've got Greg Kramer and John Bisignano covering things there. And at the moment, this is a Dyson Ford benefit, Paul Gentilozzi. You were talking about how stout these cars are, how well suited to a shorter track like this they are. And we're seeing that here in the early going, definitely.
Well, we have 2 drivers that are professionals from about the same era. Certainly Elliott's driven everything from Winston Cup to drag racing. And Dorsey earlier talked a little bit about their hope to do it on one fuel stop and fuel mileage. You have big difference in styles between Elliott and James.
As we take a look back, there's the Panoz, the 4 cars sitting 3rd overall. Doc Bundy and Johnny O'Connell sharing that machine this weekend. Some of the slower GT cars there, and there's Terry Boutsen in that champion Porsche. That is the car that's running 4th overall. They started 18th. They've come up through the field nicely. And now he's trying to get by a couple of the slower Porsches. He'll do that here, I'm sure, this little short straightaway and close in on the 4 car. Maybe not, the door closed there, yeah.
I hope that the 06 car never needs any parts from the Porsche truck because his name will be on a list. Terry's being very, very aggressive, wants by badly, can't afford to get too far behind in this section. They're going to want to put pressure on the Panoz, knowing that it doesn't have the reliability that the Porsche has.
Here comes Boutsen, still can't get by that Porsche 911. There he goes on the straightaway. Plenty of jump off the corner. Able to get by the 06 and Trip Goolsby and Rick Polk. Polk is from Excelsior, Minnesota, not too far from here. And now look at this. Boutsen's got clear racetrack to get to the Panoz.
Well, I think that Terry probably let that guy know that he was holding him up a little bit. Here we go back to the Ferrari.
Yeah.
And they are trying hard. I'm not sure that their car setup is as good as it should be. They certainly should be ahead of the Porsche at this point, and big-time straightaway speed advantage. I'm not seeing it today. The car may not have everything going its way.
This is the car that was purchased by Bill Dolhite a couple of months ago now from Andy Evans' Scandia team. And they are 5th overall in the 88. Mike Davies driving the car in the first shift. Then you have the 8 car, the Scott Schubot Henry Camphordam machine. That's the SupportNet Can-Am car in 6th overall. So you've got 2 Can-Am machines, 2 GT1 cars, then 2 more Can-Am machines, actually 3 more, because back in 7th spot is the 95, the Tom Volkin Chariot Schrader machine.
You know, I can watch, as I watch Davies in that car, he's having a lot of trouble with steering input. On the exit of a lot of the corners, he's having to go back the other way with his hands on the steering wheel, which means that he's got an oversteer. Minneapolis isn't the kind of place you want the back of the car sliding out from under you.
Now this race, of course, an hour and 45 minutes in length, and the Can-Am and GT cars are running together, but there are several races within the race. You've got the Can-Am battle between those cars. This is a race for 3rd in Can-Am right now between the 88 of Davies and the 8 of Scott Schubot. And then you've got the battle of GT1 plus GT2 plus GT3. So really 4 different battles for victory taking place here this afternoon as we watch Davies running along in 5th, and then the 8 car in 6th overall. But again, that's for 3rd in Can-Am competition. 14 laps are complete. We're running an hour and 45 minutes today. So we've got probably about an hour and 20 or so to go of racing time here on the track this afternoon. There will be at least 1 stop. Some of these teams think they can do it in 1. Others will need 2 stops if they're not getting superior fuel mileage. And there will be driver changes, of course, which, as we saw at Mid-Ohio, as we saw at Homestead earlier this year, makes things pretty interesting. Unlike at Homestead, where the Elliott Forbes Robinson Dorsey Schrader car went off in the gravel a couple of different times. They don't have to worry about that here, but you've got those concrete fences very, very close to the racing surface here. So we watch this Can-Am battle for 3rd overall as they continue to circulate. I'm going to take you back and show you some of the GT cars. It's one of the Can-Am machines in competition. We'll take a look back at some of the BMWs that have been so dominant here this season.
The thing that we want to know about this racetrack is you only get to make 1 mistake here. Clip 1 inside corner, miss an apex by a little bit, tag the wall on the outside, and your day is pretty much over. I think everybody's being very careful. I'm surprised we've gone this long without a yellow flag.
How hard is it to drive at a track like this where you can't see around the turn?
Well, you have to know what it's around the turns. The Trans Am guys had an advantage of having been here before. These competitors on a 2-day weekend don't get very much racetrack, so there's no instinct to what they're doing. As we get to this section of the racetrack, everything looks the same. There's a sequence of 6 corners, all used in 1 gear, all of the same 90-degree angle. It's really easy to forget where you are.
Take a look at the BMW, the 6 car. We've got an in-car look from that machine, the Yokohama Fina car of Petey Cunningham and Brian Simo. Brian, of course, 5th in the Trans Am event earlier here today. This is his 2nd start for the Milner team. He's driving in relief of Boris Said, who's busy today at Watkins Glen in the NASCAR Busch Series event. Boris, in fact, was the pole sitter at the Glen earlier today. Jimmy Spencer's Chevrolet for the Lysol 200 that was run earlier this afternoon. Cunningham and Simo sharing the 6 car this weekend.
You know, we got a pretty good battle going there in GT2. Right behind the BMW is a Porsche, and he stayed right with Petey. Petey, of course, is probably under team orders not to go too hard too early, but they're staying close together. They're both 1 lap down to the entire field.
There's the 07. He is leading in GT3. We'll take a look at that machine, the 07 with a nice run going. That's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People Porsche. Danny Marshall and Darren Law sharing that car. They move inside the first Union car there. We'll be back with more in Minneapolis in a moment. Yeah, he's 11th. The Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. Our coverage being brought to you today by Toyota. Every day belongs to you. Make it count. Toyota. Every day. Couldn't ask for a better day weather-wise to bring a USRRC action on Speedvision. Rick Benjamin and Paul Gentilozzi in the booth today, and we're pleased that Paul, in his driver's suit, could join us after scoring his 5th Trans Am win of the season. There's one of the 2 Dyson machines that have been setting the pace since the drop of the green. We put 18 laps on the board. We'll show you our Toyo Tires field summary now. Weaver and Leitzinger, the 16 car, James Weaver driving. They are the leaders. EFR driving the 20 at this moment. Dorsey Schrader will take over later. They're in 2nd spot, running 3rd, 1st in GT1. Doc Bundy and Johnny O'Connell in the Panoz, the silver number 4 car. Then you've got Terry Boutsen and Bob Wallach in the 38. As we watch Weaver move by one of the slower machines. Mike Davies driving the 88 car right now in 5th. Scott Schubert in the 8th, sitting in 6th, 4th overall in Can-Am. And then Tom Volk and Jared Schrader, they're 7th overall in the 95. Shane Lewis in the Raptor right now in the 2 car, running in 8th. Smith and DeSoto are 9th in the 92. And we'll take you through the rest of the 18 car field here. Peter Cunningham and Brian Simo back to 10th. And Paul, we were talking about that car earlier. We've been riding with them. They don't seem to be as quick as we would normally expect.
I'm surprised. Now, they may have a strategy of going for just one pit stop, and the Porsches may have to do 2. But the 07 car looks very, very strong. It has actually pulled away from them a little bit. As I look at the lead cars, there's something wrong with this picture. Efer's not in it. Efer is Elliott Forbes Robinson. And he must have given up the idea of trying to run with James.
Now, you were talking earlier about Elliott and his ability to coax good gas mileage out of this machine. What's he doing out there?
Well, there is a real difference in style. Anybody who's watched James Weaver drive knows that James is the last guy to get off the gas and the hardest guy to get on the brake. He also uses a lot more throttle in the corner. Elliott stops sooner in the corner, lets the car coast through, carrying a little more speed while off the throttle, and then rolls very gently on. All of those years of driving a turbocharged car from GTU gave Elliott that experience of how to keep the power level up, the momentum up, without using the throttle so abruptly.
Much easier on the car, too, I would think, to drive that.
Oh, he's a great endurance driver. That's what makes it good.
Look at the battle now in GT1. There's the Panoz, 3rd overall, and there's the Porsche, 4th overall, and that is also for class honors. Boutsen has caught right up now to the Panoz.
Well, this will be an interesting battle. The cars have about the same amount of horsepower. They both weigh around 1,850 pounds and have the same brakes and tires, so it'll be an interesting battle.
Jack Bundy at the wheel of the Visteon Panoz there, the champion STP Porsche. Terry Boutsen driving. Bob Wallach will get in later.
You know, Doc's had one of those careers. He started sweeping the floors at Al Holbert's shop.
Yeah.
And when I went to my very first road racing school to get my lesson and my license, Doc was my instructor.
You remind him of that frequently,
I do. Well, yeah, every once in a while. I've enjoyed the friendship just as I have with a lot of other guys that compete in road racing.
It is not true that Doc Bundy taught Ben-Hur how to race.
No, but he's a great golfer, I'll tell you that.
Is he?
Oh, he doesn't have a job.
Down the straightaway. There's the Panoz moving inside one of the slower cars. To pit road, John Bizignano.
A little bit more information on the psychology going around the pits here is that Terry Boutsen has to be very aggressive in the opening parts of this race to help out his teammate. Bob Wallach from France has only been on this track for 3 laps. So when he does get back out on the circuit, there'll be at least a dozen laps where he's learning the car and feeling his way around the circuit. He won't be able to go flat out for at least a dozen laps. So Boutsen wants to give him as much time as possible and maybe a lead over that Panoz GT1 car.
2 cars battling for 3rd overall, 1st in GT1. Boutsen at the moment can't seem to get up alongside Bundy and to give him a battle. I thought he would be up on him and alongside quicker than this.
Well, you know, Doc is the endurance smooth guy on this team. He wouldn't be the guy that they would necessarily send out to qualify. His job is to bring the car home, and he's doing a great job. For whatever reason, Terry can't get near him.
And a pass for position 2 in Can-Am competition. Mike Davies has been gobbled up by Schubert. That's for 5th overall. The 8 car has gotten by the 88, and now Schubert's gone. He's pulled away.
Well, I think the Ferrari's really having a tough time with the front tires. They did some experimental wings on the nose of the car, trying to make downforce. You just can't make enough with a Dallara-built Ferrari.
The other Can-Am car you see there, the 92, that's the Denaba Buick Kudzu, A.J. Smith and Joaquin DeSoto. And they are running back in 9th overall, 1 lap down to the leaders. So not a bad effort for this team that is not one of the bigger teams in Can-Am competition at this point. There's the Dollarhide and Davies Ferrari pulling away down the straightaway. Get a look at this very long main straightaway here at Minneapolis, and you think of a front stretch as being certainly long and fast. This one seems to have a lot of attitude and elevation changes in it.
Well, it's about 2,300 feet long, and you enter it in a Can-Am car at about 55 miles an hour. So it's a pretty good chance to accelerate, but big-time bumps in the brake zone.
Boutsen now right up behind the 4 of Bundy as they battle for 3rd overall and GTR1 honors, or GT1 honors, we should say, here today in Minneapolis around one of the right-hand corners. Bundy covering the spot nicely. Is he using his mirrors here?
I think he is. I think he wants to be sure to keep Terry behind him You notice Doc's car is handling well. There's no oversteer. The Panoz cars, because of the big torque, have been known to use up their rear tire. It looks like they've got a lot of wing angle, and that flat piece across the back of the car called the gurney lip makes big-time downforce pressure on the back of the car at low speeds.
Watch this GT1 battle, a Panoz and a Porsche. That's pretty much the state of GT racing in this country at this point.
Well, I think that Don Panoz has done a phenomenal job to compete with the world-class effort of the Porsche, the multi-million-dollar teams, and all of the years of experience that the Porsche company has in this. In fact, look at Doc pull away going down the straightaways. I think the Porsche's down on power a little.
Terry Boutsen has done a nice job getting to 4th spot from 18th at the start, but he's stuck there. Can't get any further ahead. There's your leader, James Weaver of the Dyson Ford, the 16. We put 22 laps on the board in Minneapolis. Welcome back to Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. Rick Benjamin and Paul Gentilozzi in the booth today. John Bizignano and Greg Kramer on pit road. You're on board with the Yokohama FINA BMW team. Ross Bentley driving. Mark Simo will jump in that car later on. That is the 10 car, and they are back in 12th spot overall right now. Doc Bundy, meantime, in the Panoz in one car, one of the Porsches, the 06, into the wall. Rush as well did some damage there, didn't he?
He was trying to avoid, I think, the other two cars that were passing him. And instead of pulling over when he should have, going down the straightaway, he got shoved. Now he's spinning into the wall.
I think he cut down a tire possibly when he brushed the wall the first time around. That's the 06 in GT3. Trip Goolsby and Rick Polk sharing that machine. And we saw the car off the corner trying to get out of the way, Paul, as you said. Clipped the wall with the left rear corner of the car there. Make it the right rear corner, actually, and then snap spun the car off the next turn. We'll show it to you again.
He over-rotated, got out of the throttle a little too soon, trying to hurry. And that rear deck that he just wrecked, probably about $3,500.
Oh, boy. You'd hate to get the bill for that on Monday morning.
No, the Porsche truck where they buy all these parts, their dictionary doesn't have the word free in it.
Back on board, the Yokohama BMW, Peter Cunningham and Mark Simo on this machine. Making a pass down the straightaway. He's been battling with the 07 car here for quite some time and has gotten back by now. The 06 stays on the racetrack, so the 06 back in 14th spot. The 07 and the 6 going door to door. This is a great battle here. This is for 9th and 10th overall, and also for class honors.
Well, Petey we call him Petey, has a lot of experience in all kinds of GT cars. Of course, he runs his own team that runs a Honda Acura and does a wonderful job at that. He's one of the guys I'd like to see in Trans Am because he's a very, very good driver.
Let's correct something we said a moment ago. The 6 is in GT2, the 07, the Porsche is in GT3, but they are just going at it hammer and tongs here in the early going of this event. Let's go to pit road. Greg Kramer.
Well, a little bit of an update. Paul, you were talking about Petey Cunningham and his abilities. The guy he's duking it out with in that GT3 07 Porsche is Darren Law. Darren is an unbelievably quick driver. Petey raced him in the Super Touring Championship, and Darren was racing an older car and was able to run with those guys. He's sort of an unknown entity, but as you can see, he is very, very quick.
Law in the 07, 10th overall. The 6 car running 9th overall, and they've had a great battle going here all afternoon so far. Back to pit road, John Bizignano.
Well, the 06 has come into the pits. They are going to go ahead and change the driver, but there's just an awful lot of damage to the right-hand side of this car. Whatever he hit it the full length of the automobile. They're pulling out all the metal that they can to try and free up that steering situation in the front, but the rear tire has definitely had a lot of damage. That wheel has a good break in it. They're going to fuel the car. So we're not 40 minutes into this race where they have to keep drivers in their stint, but they are definitely making this pit stop and doing as much work as possible to get fuel and tires. A lot of damage, but I think they'll be able to continue as long as they can get that body work off of these tires.
I would suggest that the driver that's going to get back in the car put his helmet on pretty quick here. It was one of those, I'm coming in, and they had to get the driver getting in from the trailer.
Trip Goolsby and Rick Polk sharing that car. Again, the battle in GT1. Look at Boatson to the inside. He gets by Bundy. See if he can hold out of the spot. That's for 3rd overall and 1st in GT1, and Boatson's made the pass.
It'll be interesting to see if Terry can pull away a little bit now that he's got a clean racetrack. And Doc may have just given up and said, okay, go on by. If you're going to try to hurt your car, I'm not.
So put the Porsche up into third overall and first in GT1. The Panoz drops back to fourth spot in the race as they work the back part of the racetrack here. That 06 we were showing you a moment ago that had clipped the wall and then had to stop. That's one of the Kelly Moss team cars. Very strong race team. Here's your leader, James Weaver, in the 16. Gets by Peter Cunningham in the 6. Not a pass for position. The 16 of Weaver just adding to his advantage now. He and Elliott Forbes Robinson in the 2 Dyson cars running 1 and 2. We watched Peter Cunningham in the 6th, 9th overall. He's got the 07 behind him in 10th. Those two have been battling, and they're not in the same category. Remember, the 6 is running in GT2 and the 07 in GT3. So you don't have a class battle, but you do have a race for position there.
It looks like Petey's really being careful with his car. I mean, Tom Milner, the team owner of that team, tries to impress upon his drivers how important it is not to bring home a damaged race car. He's done an amazing job getting BMW back into road racing in America and winning a lot of championships.
They have been a dominant force all season long, both in the USRRC and on the pro sports car side of things. So they're looking for a big day, of course, here this weekend. Weaver, you see the 16 sneak by. Here comes the 6. Behind him, Elliott Forbes Robinson in car number 20. Way out in front, there's about a 3.5-second gap now between the 16 and the 20. We take a look back at EFR in the 20. He'll swing to the inside coming off that final corner and down the main straightaway.
Look at the speed differential here. The BMW is probably reaching about 140 miles an hour, and in the race pace, the 20 car is probably going 165.
Now you're running Trans Am, and you've been doing that for several seasons. It's a closed car, but you've driven these open cockpit cars. What's the experience like to steer one of these things?
No, it really isn't. The thing that you notice most that's a difference is the sound. When you have the engine in front of you, you feel and hear everything that happens. The thing you hear most on these cars is the air noise at the scoop right next to your head. The big wah effect that you get, especially in the Ferrari.
Now here comes the Kelly Moss Porsche, the 06 back on the racetrack. They made their driver change and rectified the problem with the bodywork on the right-hand side of the car, so there's nothing rubbing, presumably, and they'll be back in action here. It's an endurance race, an hour and 45 minutes today, so they're not out of the hunt by any means for class honors. Back to pit road, John Bisignano.
Rick Polk is taking on some fluids here, trying to get feeling a little bit better after all that heat. Rick, a lot of damage on the right-hand side of the car. How'd you get off the circuit?
Circuit was great.
What happened to you out there?
You know, let's go over there. I can't hear a word you're saying.
Why did you go off the circuit?
Oh, well, we were running really good. I think we were in third, and we were having a good race with Eric Johnson. And when the faster cars started lapping us, we were letting them get by us one at a time. But 2 of them came by me at once, and they pushed me off into turn 6 there. Had nowhere to go, and I slid into the wall. And then I just tried to...
There you go. I tell you, the GT3 cars just can't disappear when the faster cars come by. They got to give them some room.
Well, the car is back on the racetrack. Looks like it's okay. It'll be able to continue. Meantime, the 16, James Weaver, setting quite a pace. He's got a 5.5-second advantage. 29 laps complete in Minneapolis. We are back in the streets of Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. On Speedvision, I'm Rick Benjamin. Paul Gentilosi's alongside this weekend. On pit road, Greg Creamer and John Bisignano. We're glad you're with us. The Dyson Fords, the stars of the show here in the early going, along with the Porsche GT-R1 as we take a look at James Weaver continuing to lead. He's led pretty much all the way. Teammate Elliott Forbes Robinson back in second. Terry Bootson and the champion STP machine, they've come to third after starting last, 18th today. They have done a nice job of coming up through there. The Panoz, the 4 car, is in 4th spot as we look at Elliott Forbes Robinson tucking. Look at this, Doc Bundy in trouble. He's clipped the wall, it appears. Gets it fired up and backs it up.
That's exactly what you don't want to happen. Doc spun on the way into a corner, probably under braking, locked the wheel up, and made a major mistake for this early in the race. He may have got caught out in the marble.
We were talking while we were in break, Paul. You said that there is a lot of rubber down on the track just out of the groove.
Well, we've already had 3 races here today, and the people at home can look. We see a lot of what looks like oh, here we go.
This is the 92 Can-Am machine. Looks like Doc got inside him, and the 92 didn't see him.
That's not a mistake you can afford to make this early in the race. But Doc, I'm sure, thought that guy saw him, and he should have saw him. But unfortunately, it's an endurance race, and now they're really out of the hunt.
They're going to bring the Panoz in on pit road to see if there's any damage, see if they need to change tires. Greg Creamer standing by in the Panoz pit area.
Rick, this may not have been the worst time for Doc to have made that little mistake, because they were planning on a stop anyway, and it doesn't look like there's any serious damage. There's a little bit of discoloration on the side of the car, but they were planning to stop. Johnny O'Connell will be replacing Doc, as you see O'Connell getting in, and O'Connell very, very fast indeed. So they may have decided to put the rabbit in, if you will, and take it all the way to the finish. We should be just past that 40-minute mark, so we should be okay in terms of driver eligibility and points. And interestingly, they're putting on scuffed tires. They're putting on tires that they've already run, not the brand new, the sticker tires that we talk about. So they've got a little bit of a plan here. They wanted tires that would be ready to go and get up to speed in a hurry. O'Connell fires it up. He is on the way, and as you can see, not a lot of damage to that car at all.
No, I think he stopped. I think he got on the brakes before he actually hit the concrete. The nose of the car didn't look damaged at all.
In the end, if they don't get a lap down and we have a yellow, there probably won't be a lot of penalty to the team. Johnny's a very, very smooth driver. Raced against him in GTS and a little bit in Trans Am. He and his wife Robin are wonderful people, and he really lives this sport. He wants to be a professional at it, has done some IRL, took a big hit a year ago in an IRL car, and he's one of the guys that I would pick. If I was a team owner, he's one of the guys I'd pick for any endurance race.
Certainly a strong contender everywhere he goes. Johnny O'Connell has saddled up now in the 4 car, so we'll see if he's able to get back on the beam and get that car into contention. Meantime, it's in the hands of the Dyson team. Crew members looking on. James Weaver is out in front with an hour of racing to go. Our coverage of the USRRC Can-Am and GT cars of the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minneapolis being brought to you by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. We'll show you how they're running here with 34 laps on the board. We take a look at James Weaver, who is your race leader. His teammate Elliott Forbes-Robinson right behind in second spot, about 4 seconds back. Only 4 cars remain on the lead lap. We'll show you the overall picture. Terry Boutsen and Bob Wallach now. They've got the 38 car, the champion Porsche, up to 3rd. We saw Doc Bundy spin the Panoz a moment or so ago, so he has dropped back several spots. Johnny O'Connell now driving that car. Scott Schubot has the Can-Am 8 car up into 4th. Mike Davies in 5th with the 88. There you see Bundy and O'Connell back in 7th overall. Vic Lewis, Shane Lewis and Vic Rice in 8th spot. Peter Cunningham, Brian Simo's machine in 9th at the moment. That's one of the BMWs. Then Marshall and Law, Bentley and Mark Simo, Smith and DeSoto in the Can-Am car, the number 92. We'll show you the rest of the field here as well. James Weaver's had this one all his way, the first 34 laps. When driver changes roll around for the Dyson team, we get a little bit further along here, and we get down to the last 50 minutes or 45 minutes of racing. I think we'll see an interesting thing develop, because Dorsey Schrader's been so quick in that 20 car. Butch Leitzinger's certainly very fast in the 16 machine, and Dorsey, I know, is hungry for another victory. So I think we got to have quite a battle up front here before this one is over. Let's head down to pit road. John Bizignano.
Well, the 52 Porsche has come in to try and make a regular stop in the GT2 category. They had a little bit of driver's problem getting the belts off of during the drive. I'm sorry, I had to hike all the way down here, flat out. But the fuel's going in. They're not doing anything with the tires. Earlier, they told us that the car was set up perfectly. They spent 5 hours setting this car up to try and make it on one set of tires. So all they're doing is fuel and the driver change. And right now, the driver change is taking a little bit longer than they want to. But the 52 is in. It should be the last stop of the day for these guys.
They're in GT2 with that machine. They're 17th, 5 laps down. Let's take a look at Johnny O'Connell now in the Panoz. Back on the racetrack, up to 7th spot, a lap down. O'Connell will have his work cut out for him. Down to Greg Creamer on pit road.
Well, gentlemen, we're standing by with O'Connell's teammate, the gentleman who started the Panoz off. Doc, first of all, how's the track? What's it like out there?
It's getting slippery. The chicane's starting to break up now. And I was sliding a lot through the chicane into the, I think, 4th turn. So I lost a lot of time in that section every lap, and I just couldn't do anything about it.
Obviously, right before your pit stop, you had a little bit of a moment out there. What happened?
I caught 2 slower cars, and I got by one, and I thought the other one knew I was there. He kind of held out for an instant, but obviously he didn't. He turned into the corner, and I didn't want to hit him, so he hit my front end because I was there, and it spun me.
All right, well, there's a little yellow on that on the tire that came off the car. Let's check in with Biz.
We had a very quick stop by the number 10 BMW. Simo was in the car, routine stop. I got him in only about 32 seconds, and that's changing all 4 tires. I've never seen a GT stop that quick with the equipment that they have. Everything went perfectly, just as BMW always likes it.
Well, you know, Doc was talking about the track breaking up in the chicane. As we go down the straightaway, the chicane really isn't part of the traditional roadway.
Yeah.
It was a parking lot that they convert for the weekend, take the telephone poles out with the lights on them, and each year we've raced here, we've had a little bit of problem with the pavement tearing up. It was designed not as a street, not with the engineering loads that a street has, but as a parking lot. So the surface pulls up, and we get these little things we call marbles all over that surface, and when we have them, it gets very, very slippery.
And that's the part of the racetrack they're just coming into there now. That is not part of the streets of Minneapolis. You see the markings for the parking spots.
Well, they've tried to patch it in areas that it's torn up, so they've taken a white epoxy-type substance that dries very quickly, and the only bad thing about that is, as it gets torn up, it turns into a white fine powder and goes on top of those marbles.
While you were telling us about that, we saw O'Connell get by the 95, the Can-Am car there of Tom Volk and Jared Schrader. So O'Connell is back up to 6th overall, 2nd in GT1. We take a look back at the leader, James Weaver, almost to halfway here in the streets of Minneapolis. Welcome back to the streets of Minneapolis. The Sprint PCS Grand Prix in Minnesota on Speedvision. The USRRC GT and Can-Am machines in action here this afternoon. I'm Rick Benjamin. Trans Am star Paul Gentilozzi is alongside. Greg Creamer, John Visignano on pit road. You're riding along with the Yokohama Fina BMW in GT2. Peter Cunningham and Brian Simo sharing that car today. Car number 6 is 9th overall. The hunt for GT2 honors today. One of the 4 cars running in that category. There they are again with the 07. They've been nose to tail all afternoon, Paul Gentilozzi.
They are glued together, and I have to give the driver of the 07 car a lot of credit. You know, Barry Marshall and Darren Law are hustling that car around, and they're putting a lot of pressure on Petey. Now, Pete has a lot more experience than Simo has in this particular kind of car. Of course, Simo's got a lot more experience on the racetrack, so the last half of this race should be very interesting between these two.
Now the 6 is leading in GT2 over the 75, the Pettit Racing Mazda of Cameron Worth and Scott Sansone, which is back overall being shown back in 15th spot. So Cunningham and Simo certainly have a good thing going here today. They are not having a bad day by any means, but to have a GT3 car filling their mirrors like that, obviously there's not a lot of performance difference between the two categories.
Well, the Porsche is a little bit lighter, and in the slow series of corners on this racetrack, it has an advantage, but I expected the BMW to be much faster down the straightaway. For some reason, they're not showing their advantage.
As we take a look at Terry Boutsen and Bob Wallach, looks like Boutsen will be bringing that car in for their pit stop and driver change here pretty shortly. 3rd overall. They lined up 18th after a fire. If you're just joining us Saturday during practice and qualifying, and Boutsen just turned in a great run getting that car to the front.
Well, he's done a good job at keeping away from all the other competitors. And I know that Bob Wallach's only had a few races, a few laps around this racetrack, but those of us who know Bob know that it won't take him but a lap or two to be as fast as anyone. He has so much experience and so much guile in the car that if he's got a chance to win it, he'll be there.
So Terry Boutsen planning on bringing that car onto pit road here very shortly. We have just passed the halfway point of the hour and 45-minute run here today. Bob Wallach getting set to jump in the car. He's got the hat on, the earplugs are in, and they'll be bringing that car onto pit road very, very shortly. I'm looking forward to seeing Bob Wallach run. I haven't seen him race in a long time personally, in person at the racetrack. So it'll be interesting for me to see him climb into that car and give it a go.
Well, Bob is really one of my idols. He's at that 50-something age. You
got a long way to go to get there.
Well, I hope I'm as good as Bob Wallach is when I get to be his age. He works very hard on fitness, really into bicycling, and it's not unusual for him to ride 200 miles a week to stay in shape.
Battle again, the 6 car leading in GT2, the 07 leading in GT3. They are 9th and 10th overall on the racetrack right now. One of the other Milner BMWs, the 10 car. Look at this, the 07 Law going inside for position here.
He's inside now, and there's nothing that Pete Cunningham can do except let him come by. They got slowed down a little bit. Now he's going to race him and have the inside position advantage for this corner. Let's see what happens here. In the marbles, close to the tires, but he's going to keep his position.
You're on board there for a moment with Peter Cunningham. He and Darren Law are side by side through the maze, as Dorsey Schrader calls it.
Well, Darren Law did the smart thing by backing off, you know. Petey is a very experienced guy and not likely to want to be embarrassed by having a car class down pass him.
All 8 cars in front of these two are either Can-Am or GT1 machines. So this is a battle between a GT2 and a GT3 car, and they are the class leaders at this point, running 9th and 10th overall with 41 laps on the board here at Minneapolis.
If there'd been rain today, you know, these two cars could be the leaders.
Yeah.
They have a big advantage under braking because of their lightweight and their low horsepower. And in the rain, it could have meant that they had a chance to win overall.
Rain can be the great equalizer, as we've seen so many times over the years. As we take you for an onboard look out the rear camera down the main straightaway of one of our onboard machines.
We're 42 laps into this race, and I'm surprised. It must be that the James Weaver, Butch Leitzinger combination are going to go for the one-stop deal, too.
Wow.
They may have fooled their teammates and let them think they were going to be the rabbit.
Word we're getting from pit road is that all the teams just about that haven't stopped yet are getting ready to come on pit road very shortly. So it'll be interesting to see how the strategy starts to play out as we're now in the second half of the action here in Minneapolis today. There's Weaver still at the wheel of the 16. He's led all the way. 42 laps are complete. John Bizignano, what are you seeing down there?
Well, the Can-Am car number 92, powered by Buick, is in. A.J. Smith is out. DeSota is in the car. They have gone ahead and changed all 4 tires very quickly. Just one big nut to loosen and put back on these Can-Am type cars. But the driver change was a little bit less than perfect. The car has already been fueled, having a little bit of problem with the right front. But now the belts is the big thing. Everyone's trying to look down inside the car to make sure that the belts are absolutely secure. But this is a much longer stop than they hoped for. All the other service is done. And Greg Kramer, you got someone coming towards you.
I do. The overall leader, number 16, James Weaver, is in. He got a little break here as Scott Schubot and Henry Camperham did a driver change in their car and left, clearing a spot for Weaver. Weaver's in. As you can see, he's out of the car. Leitzinger's going to climb on board. Very routine. This car is working beautifully. And the amazing thing is that Weaver was able to stretch the fuel really quite a long time by comparison to what they normally do. So a one-stop race looks to be in the books. He's just helping Leitzinger buckle up. They've got all the wheels now on. The refueling going to take the longest in this instance. Weaver helping him out there. Leitzinger's all buckled in. Now it's just a matter of fuel, and they will be out and down. Leitzinger, car down up the jack. He is gone. And whoa, he just lit it up. There's a 45-minute speed limit into the pit. He had to observe that all the way in. Leitzinger just dropped it on the way out.
Butch, that was a great stop.
Yeah.
Butch is one of the nicest guys in all of road racing.
They have given up the lead for the moment to Elliott Forbes Robinson in the team car, the 20. Dorsey Schrader will jump into that machine when they come on the pit road.
One of the details that I don't want anybody at home to miss, on the top of Butch's helmet, he had a little patch of Velcro, and he had the plug for his radio. So his teammate wasn't hunting for it. He knew right where it was, plucked it off his helmet, and plugged it in right behind him. The real sign of a professional team.
Here comes the other Dyson Ford on the pit road. This is the 20 car. Elliott Forbes Robinson will bring this car to the attention of the Dyson team. They will fuel, make a driver change. They give up the overall lead here. As we watch the car roll to a stop, Greg Kramer, they're ready to go.
They are ready, and again, you can see the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit is such a qual compared to what they normally run. EFR came in. Look how quick he's out of the seats. He already had his belts undone, his radio disconnected. He was ready to go. Dorsey Schrader getting on board, and we've documented this already, how quick Dorsey was. In the first session this weekend, Dorsey was 2 seconds quicker than anyone else. And in the morning warm-up this morning, he was almost a second quicker than Weaver's pole time. The pace of this car, with the fuel economy that they've gotten from EFR, this should be fun to watch when Dorsey hits the track. He'd love to win another one, to go on top with his win at Mid-Ohio, get his second straight here at Can-Am. Again, they're just buckling in. Fuel's out. Driver change taking a little bit longer than they wanted. Something amiss, probably trying to get a buckle done. Now it's done. Car's down, and Schrader is out.
Air jacks go down. Here comes the 20 car up onto the racetrack. The 38 car, the champion Porsche, is the overall leader right now. They have not yet made their stop. Gary Boatson still at the wheel of that car and picking off a lot of ground, gaining a lot of ground right now, opening up 6 or 7 seconds. Of course, this pit stop will take probably 45 seconds to get everything done, make the driver change and so forth.
That pit lane speed of 45 miles an hour is necessitated here because we have a very, very narrow space, and safety is much more important. I think that the Porsche will have to stop and probably lose as much as a minute overall from their lap times.
All right, the 16 car back on the racetrack now, and the driver change has been made. Butch Leitzinger wheeling that car. Dorsey Schrader now on board the 20. Here's Boutsen in the 38. Coming down, making one of the left-hand 90-degree turns. He is your overall leader. They have not yet made a pit stop in that champion Porsche. Waiting to put Bob Wallach in the chair for the balance of the action here at Minneapolis. We'll be back. Welcome back to Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota on Speedvision, the USRRC Can-Am and GT machines. Rick Benjamin and Paul Gentilozzi topside. Greg Creamer, John Bisignano on pit road to Greg Creamer.
We have a pit stop by the AVE, Arterial Vascular Engineering Ferrari, one of the beautiful V12s. And you can see Mike Davies, who started the car, standing up in the open side of the cockpit, helping Bill Dullahide get in, doing the lap belt right now for Bill. Then they'll get the radios. It's a sort of a very prescribed routine that they go through. Beautiful yellow Ferrari. Look at how quick this stop was. The fuel went in incredibly well. They didn't use much. Tires are done. It's just a matter of the driver's change, but the fuel went in very quickly. I'm wondering if they maybe got it all in or if they just didn't use too much. Mike was being very, very careful, very smooth out there, and that gives good economy. They fired it up, and he is out. And by the way, the number 95 Supreme Exhaust Can-Am machine was in. Schrader got out, and owner Tom Bolton now behind the wheel of that car.
Going to take a ride here with the team owner, Bill Dullahide, in the 88. They are third in Can-Am and fifth overall when that pit stop began.
Well, you know, the real judgment for how good the pit stop is the driver change done by the time the fueler pulls out the fuel probe. There's a predetermined flow rate for all of the competitors, and they all have the same size fuel cell. The 16 car, fuel probe was out and the driver change was done. That's the sign of a team that has everything together. These other guys are working hard on it, and I'm sure a few races more, they'll have it together.
Let's see how the GT3 leader does on pit road. Darren Law jumping out. Danny Marshall getting into the 07. What's the situation down there, guys? Greg Creamer?
Well, we're taking a look at the stop for the GT1 machine, the Mosler Raptor, and you can see Vic Rice was out, had the door shut. Paul, what you were talking about, had the door shut, was walking away, realized the window net wasn't up. He had to go back. Everything else has been done. Fuel's in, tires are on. Now he gets the window net up, drops the car down, and Shane Lewis is going to take that car back out on track. Oh, he's having a problem. They can't get it restarted now. They're asking for a push from some of the crew. Now he gets it going. That delayed things quite a bit.
The Mosler Raptors 7th overall when they came onto pit road.
That's a very unusual car. I don't know if the fans at home can appreciate it. It's a custom-built car for production, and that's why it's legal in these classes.
And that was the car originally. It was called the Consulier when it first came out.
Yes, it's still sold under that name in some cases, the used ones, and the Raptor folks have now come along and really worked hard on their GT1 program.
Took a look at that car in mid-Ohio up close. It's got almost a boat-type windshield. There's a pillar down the middle and two panels on the side. It is a most unusual design. There's the 16 car. And how Butch Leitzinger driving that car. They led much of the early going here. The pit stop forced them to give up the lead to the champion Porsche, the 38. With Terry Boutsen still driving. They have not yet stopped, but Bob Wallach, we saw a moment ago, is on pit road ready to go with his helmet on, so you know the stop is coming here momentarily. About a 5.5-second lead at the moment for the 38 over the 16. That'll go away as soon as Boutsen comes out of pit road.
Well, he's cut that lead down to 3.4 seconds the last lap, and I'm sure that Butch is making a charge. The last thing he wants to do is have a yellow flag and not be in the lead. So the Porsche guys are light on fuel. They've worn their tires out. They're being a little bit careful. They're going to have to make their stop soon. I don't think they have the performance level today unless the Dyson Fords have to stop twice.
And these Dyson machines, these two Riley and Scott Ford-powered cars, have pretty much been bulletproof over the last couple of years. It's not a car that you'd expect to break here.
Well, when they started the program, you know, Ford didn't make a good aluminum block, so they were having to use a cast iron block, and it hurt some of their performance because they were carrying about 75 pounds extra weight. Now they've got a good block cast, and they've got a great engine program by Lozano Brothers.
Take a look at the leader. The 38 car is out in front here, but remember, they have not yet made a stop. There's the Scott Schubot Henrik Camperdam machine, the 8 car. And then there's the 16 with Butch Leitzinger now saddled up in the Dyson car. They've led much of the way, second overall now, first in Can-Am. To Greg Creamer on pit road.
We are standing by with James Weaver, who just got out of the number 16 Dyson car. First of all, James, we've documented that you weren't feeling so good this morning. You look like you're feeling pretty spry.
Oh, I feel fine now. As soon as you put your hat on, everything's okay.
Anytime you're leading, too, you feel better. Looked like things were going very well.
Yeah, we're delighted with the way the cars have been going. They've been flying all year. And for this race, Goodyear brought out some new tyres, which are absolutely dynamite.
You also seem to be getting great fuel economy here. I mean, we were talking almost 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's because the lap average is probably only 72 miles an hour. That obviously makes a huge difference to your fuel economy.
That's going to pay off. Maybe go to the end on that one stop.
A good judge of how long this pit stop's going to take will be when the Panoz comes out behind the Porsche. The Porsche is on its way into the pit here any lap, and the Panoz is about 5 or 6 seconds behind, already having done their pit stop.
We watched Leitzinger at the wheel of the 16. That car has made its stop and driver change. Now, we understood that some of the Can-Am cars might have to stop for a splash of fuel late. There's boots into the inside of the 88, the Ferrari. There's the Leitzinger car.
This race is going at a record pace. You know, we haven't had a yellow yet, which is very, very surprising in a street race like this. Now, Leitzinger's got to protect the advantage that James gave him. Of course, he's got Dorsey. Here he comes past the 38 car. Interesting. I'm not sure why he slowed down so much. He may be having a problem or just being very careful on his in-lap. His fuel light may have come on. Yeah. He's gone too far.
Terry Boutsen still driving the 38. They have not yet stopped. Just gave up the overall lead. Running now in second spot, first in GT1. Remember the Panoz, Doc Bundy spun that car and clipped the wall a while back. They've made their driver change since then, and they're coming back up through. The Panoz is fourth overall now and second to the 38 car in GT1.
The Porsche's slowed down considerably here. He may have just worn out the tires. Yeah. And they have a fuel warning light, which means they have a reserve tank that allows them to make 1 or 2 laps. If that light has come on, he switched on the reserve pump, and he's just trying to nurse it home without running out of fuel.
Can-Am machines, your 16 car, Butch Leitzinger on top in that car. They've led much of the way. They're back in the overall lead as well. Leading the Can-Am standings here this season down the
Porsche's on its way into the pits.
Here comes the champion Porsche machine down onto pit road. Driver change coming, fuel and tires too, and probably the only stop that they will make here this afternoon. John Bizignano on pit road. Well, the car is in, the crew jumping to work there. The air jacks go up, putting all 4 tires on, fuel in the car. The driver change is going on right now. Bob Wallach crawling in. Boutsen will be there to hook him back up. Greg Creamer, can you see what's going on?
Can indeed, and it's well, they got a little bit of a problem with the right front. They had to get it to seat, but they did it in fairly quick time. Still working on the driver's change. You can see the European design of this car with the vent on the bottle there on the opposite side of the refueling nozzle. So they have to have that allowance for an extra person over the wall. However, all the work is done. Driver is in. Tires are on. Just getting that refueling done. Exactly what Paul talked about in terms of a proficient pit stop. There it is. Fuel is down. And car is down and away. Good stop.
Traditionally in the past, the GT cars have been allowed 100 liters of fuel as opposed to the 80 of the Can-Am cars. Now that 20 extra liters, or about 20% of the overall fuel capacity, takes longer to get in the car. But that team was down, had the tires on and the driver in before the fueler was finished.
You can tell they practiced pit stops. There's no doubt about that. They did a great job getting the 38 back out.
The other thing we should notice, in the vent bottle, they allowed about a gallon of gasoline to run in the vent bottle. They are concerned about having enough fuel to go to the end, so they overfilled to capacity the tank.
Good battle down the main straightaway. A couple of the BMWs, one of the Can-Am cars in the battle, and there's the 07. Danny Marshall at the wheel of that machine as we jump on board with the Yokohama BMW, the 10 car. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the streets of Minneapolis. You're on board with the Yokohama Tires BMW, the 6 car, being shared by Peter Cunningham today, and he is running very nicely in the 10th spot. We take a look at our Toyo Tires overall field summary at this point. The 16 of Weaver and Leitzinger back out in front, which Leitzinger driving that car right now. And there's the 4th place car, the 4, the Panoz of Doc Bundy and Johnny O'Connell. O'Connell at the wheel there. The Raptor running in 7th spot, then the Can-Am 95 car, Tom Volk and Jared Schrader. And the rest of the field today here at Minneapolis.
You know, Rick, Dorsey's starting to make a charge here. Last lap, he picked up 1.5 seconds on Butch Leitzinger. I think it's his experience on the racetrack and his aggressiveness. He's really working the car hard here.
He wants to win. He's a driver who certainly is hungry to get to victory lane. Not that they all aren't, but I think Dorsey has a little more fire in the belly than the average that you might see out here.
Well, you know he's unemployed.
Well, Rob Dyson might not agree with that, but...
Well, this started out to be a one-off deal for Dorsey, and he really has impressed Rob with his professionalism, and I think he's raised the stock of all the American road races. Yeah. He's come on to this team, been very, very careful with the race car, and he's given James Weaver a challenge for the fastest guy.
Dorsey Schrader at the wheel, of course, our colleague on the Trans Am broadcast this season here on Speedvision. And Dorsey, a past Trans Am champion, raced in the series through last year. So, Paul, you certainly know him very well as a competitor.
Well, he's a great competitor and one of the greatest guys, one of the greatest, most positive spirits that you'll ever. You know, I've often said to Dorsey, he's still in the 60s.
Yeah.
I'm sure I met him at Woodstock, and I'm sure that he's still got all his bell-bottom pants somewhere at home.
Tie-dye T-shirts are in his closet.
He wears them now. He lives down in the Keys. He cut another 1.5 seconds off Leitzinger's gap.
One of the Milner BMWs on pit road. Here comes the 6th car. Looks like Brian Simo about to jump in, or has jumped in.
I see Brian shaking his head no.
I'll show you what happened here. He got clipped, not again. He had trouble in the Trans Am today a couple of times, a couple of trips into the wall, and the 07 Porsche got into him there. So Danny Marshall and Simo make contact.
Well, that looks familiar. If I remember last year in the Trans Am race, Brian and I had an incident exactly like that.
Same spot, pretty much, wasn't it?
Exactly the same spot. He's I'm sure aggressive in the car. They've got the fastest car in the class, and their pit stop was a little slow, so they're trying to make up time. Doesn't look like it did much damage to the car. I'm sure the guy in the 07 car doesn't think so.
And look at the Panoz. Here's Johnny O'Connell to the inside of Wallach. That's for the lead in GT1, and he's got it back.
I'm not sure that they can go to the distance. They stopped early, about 12 laps or so earlier than the Porsche. They may have to come in for a stop and fuel.
This has been a battle all year long between these two cars, between the Panoz and the Porsche, for GT1 honors all across the board from Daytona back in February, right through the middle of the season here now.
Another 1.3 second decrease for Dorsey. It may be that Butch is feeling like he's got a big enough lead. He's not pressing, but Dorsey's knocked 1.3 to 1.5 seconds off every lap.
Well, Dorsey told us earlier before we came on the air, he thought they definitely could do it on one stop, but that their teammates, the 16 car, might not be able to, that they might need a late splash of fuel. So
there is a little difference in the engine package. Now, the Lozano brothers are working with bore-stroke combination, the size of the header, the size of the injector stacks to make torque. I'll bet you that Dorsey's car is using a little less engine speed. That's what gives them the good fuel economy.
So it could be quite a battle down to the checkered flag. The battle at GT1 also very stout. Let's go to pit road for an update. Greg Creamer.
Well, we're standing by with Terry Bootson. And Terry, sometimes success comes easy. Sometimes it comes with hard work. And you had a great run from dead last.
Yeah, sure. But we had so many problems so far that I'm still very anxious about the race. We're leading GT1 at the moment, but it's a very, very tough race, very hard, very warm inside the cockpit of the car. But we'll see. I mean, the weekend started very, very badly. We had a fire after 2 laps in the car, and that destroyed most of the back end of the car. So the crew did a very, very good job to change everything, get the car ready for the race. We didn't have any practice. No time to set up the car, no time to get used to the track. And we're leading at the moment, so I'm pretty happy, but confident I'm not yet.
How was it coming through all of those cars on this track? That had to be tough work.
Well, people that I'm passing are the slower cars. They knew that my car is quick, so they let me by. I mean, there's no problem with traffic. The people are very gentlemen, no problem.
All right, Terry, nice job. Congratulations. Gentlemen?
Terry Bootson getting out of the 38. His teammate Bob Wallach is saddled up in there now, but they have lost the lead in GT1. We are live in Minneapolis on Speedvision. Our coverage of the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota being brought to you today by Lexus. The future of Lexus is here, so fasten your seatbelts. Back at the street circuit, Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. The USRRC Can-Am and GT cars on the racetrack. About a half an hour, a little less than half an hour of racing left in this hour and 45-minute run this afternoon. There's the Mosler Raptor, the number 2 machine. Mick Rice and Shane Lewis, they're 7th overall in contention in GT1. And there's the car that's been leading much of the way. Butch Leitzinger now out in front in car number 16. After the driver change, they lost the lead briefly, but now Leitzinger's got the point, and he's about 17 seconds to the good over Dorsey Schrader. We were talking about that gap. Dorsey hasn't closed it up much more.
Well, it's down to about 17, but Butch had a bad break there in traffic and got behind the Raptor for 5 or 6 turns. Had to wait for a braking zone. You know, the Raptor's got that 6.5-liter engine, lots of power, squirts around those slow corners. It'll be interesting to see this lap if Dorsey was able to cut into the margin any more on Butch. And really, the ebb and flow of traffic makes a big difference in how the race goes. At this point, probably Dorsey's going to be as aggressive as he can and hope that he can make those other guys make a mistake. Here he comes onto the front straightaway.
We'll cycle you back and show you just how big that gap is in terms of track position. It was 17, now it's 18.5 seconds. So they've lost, even with the traffic holdup for Leitzinger, he's gained about 1.5 seconds this trip around over the 20 car. So it's a long way. 18 seconds here, obviously the length of the main straightaway and then some.
Well, the only hope now, traffic's going to take them both at a disadvantage at different intervals. The only hope now is that the 20 car for Dorsey has to stop for more fuel. I don't know. We really need a yellow here to save him.
There's the 16, Leitzinger out in front. That's been the dominant horse here so far today. The two Dyson Fords. They were on the front row together, and they have dominated the show with more than half of the race into the books. In fact, we're inside the 28 minutes of racing left out of an hour 45. So, and as you mentioned, Paul, a couple of times, still no yellow flags. We haven't even seen a caution on a corner.
No, and look at Johnny O'Connell. He is really staying pretty closely to the 16 car. Johnny's one of the smoother drivers in all of these kinds of cars, GT racing, and that comes from his success in Formula Atlantic.
Mike Davies and Bill Dolehite. Davies started the car, Dolehite driving. Now that's the 88, the AVE Ferrari, and they are 6th overall. And a quick check of the board shows they should be 4th in Can-Am. They're trying to get close to the Scott Schubert Henry Kempferdam machine, the 8 car, which is 1 spot ahead in 5th and 3rd in Can-Am. So Davies and Dolehite doing a nice job in that Ferrari, but they've been unable to get up there to challenge for the lead.
He's really not using all the racetrack, which means he's just trying to conserve the car at this point. He may be satisfied with the position they're in class. The real rabbit and hare story is the 16 car and the 20 car. The two Dyson teammates. I think if I was in the car with 20 minutes to go, I'd much rather be the rabbit.
Really?
Oh, it's so much more fun. A lot of races here in Minneapolis. You know, we had a flat tire last year, went all the way to the back of the pack, and it invigorates you to be able to charge, to not care what happens. All you have to do is go fast, and Dorsey's just that kind of guy. Butch, on the other hand, is very, very steady. Never makes a mistake. I teamed with Butch in 1994 in the 300 Nissan with Scott Pruitt to win the 24-hour of Daytona. He never put a wheel off, never missed a shift, never made a mistake the whole time.
Well, there he is right now. Butch Leitzinger in the 16 car, your race leader. There's the Panoz. Johnny O'Connell driving the 4. They are 3rd overall, 1st in GT1. And 1 lap down to the leaders, but O'Connell's been able to stay right there with Leitzinger.
He may unlap himself here. Don't forget, he's only 1 lap down. And if he was able to unlap himself, and then we were to have a yellow, we could have a big race.
Sure could. The 50, one of the GT3 machines, will move over and let the Panoz get by. Up onto the straightaway now, and there you see 16. That's Leitzinger. 4 is O'Connell, a GT car. And they have gone away from the 38, the champion Porsche. Bob Wallach driving the car now. They're 4th overall, 2nd in GT1, but not anywhere close to the 4 at this point.
Now, they may have made a decision that they don't want to use all the power they have. As I talked earlier, that boost knob makes great power, but it also deteriorates the fuel mileage. So they may have backed up on the boost, knowing that the Panoz has to stop. At least they hope they know that.
You watch the Panoz circling around. We're going to show you a little further back in the pack who is out in front in GT2. That should be the 6 automobile. And there he is. That's one of the BMWs, one of the Yokohama FINA machines. That's Brian Simo now wheeling the car. Petey Cunningham started the machine. Brian has jumped in after a difficult Trans Am run. How hard is it to climb in one of these cars after you've driven an hour and a half in a Trans Am machine, 100 miles there?
Some of the advantages are that you get to see the racetrack a lot. The other disadvantage is that the BMW is very much a momentum car. You can't use the brute power that you can in a Trans Am car to make it go fast. Everything about the handling is different, foreign. So I give Brian a lot of credit. It takes a lot of driver's talent to go fast in these 2 different cars on the same day.
The 6 is 11th overall. Let's go to pit road, talk to his teammate, John Bizignano.
Well, Peter Cunningham was the man who helped put that car so far up the grid. Beautiful GT2 car. Your first pit stop went absolutely perfectly, driver's change, but then the car was right back in a few laps later. What happened there?
Oh, yeah, the FINA BMW was great for the whole first part, and when Brian got in, he was out there for a few laps, and one of the Panoz cars accidentally touched him, and he cut a tire, so he just had to come in and get a new tire. Everything should be fine now.
The circuit itself, is it any problems with the circuit? A lot of cars on it. The heat down here is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like a brick oven out there, but no, it was okay. Not as bad as last week at Atlanta. BMW is just perfect for these kind of tracks, so we're just laughing out there.
They're laughing, but it's hot.
Hot it is. Hot in the race car, hot on the racetrack as we watch the 6 car circulate with Brian Simo at the wheel. They're 11th overall, leading GT2. You've got 2 GT3 machines ahead of them. Their team car, the BMW, the number 10, with Mark Simo at the wheel. Brian's brother driving that car. We jump on board with Mark Simo now. He's got the advantage over the 07, the Porsche that we've watched so much today.
Well, I wouldn't want to say that there's a competitive thing between the 2 Simo brothers, but Mark is in a GT3 car, yeah. Brian's in a GT2 car, and Mark's leading. Now, I'm sure that if Brian can't pass his brother, somebody's buying a big dinner tonight.
I was going to say, you think they might talk about that a little? There might be a little razzing going on, the plane going home?
Well, it's unbelievable. Of course, you know, they're wonderful guys to have as friends and competitors. Brian and I really enjoy the competition on and off the racetrack. Doesn't matter whether we're playing golf or hitting softballs. We're just competitive kinds of people. But those two have grown up as twins, working for a common goal in business and competing in every other area. Motocross, skateboards, snowboards, doesn't matter what it is.
Interesting story, to be sure, and it's fun to watch them race together here in GT competition. Now, Brian drove the 6 car for the first time last week at Road Atlanta, and they won. He came in late as a late replacement, took a red-eye, if I heard the story correctly, to get to Road Atlanta and drive the car.
Took the red-eye, got there 2 hours before the race, hadn't slept, got in and did a wonderful job. You know, and his brother Mark isn't a professional race driver, doesn't have all the experience that Brian has, but has the ability to jump in a car. Had a great Busch finish at a road course in Busch North here not too long ago.
On board one of the BMWs right now, working the back part of the racetrack here. Meantime, the race is in the hands of Butch Leitzinger with a 22-second lead in Minneapolis. Welcome back to the streets of Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota. Time for our Michelin race reset. Butch Leitzinger and James. It might as well be Butch Weaver the way things are going here. Butch Leitzinger is out in front right now. They've led all the way, just about all 57 laps that they have been out in front. It's been very strong. There have been only 3 lead changes this afternoon. Everybody's still in competition. We started with 18 cars, and all 18 cars are still in action as we watch the 16 arrow down the front straightaway.
Well, with less than 20 minutes left, there's obviously a strategy going here. Dorsey has slowed his pace considerably, and he's letting Butch go. Now, if Butch doesn't stop for a pit stop, then he's got to be happy with second place. I think that Butch right now is probably being very careful in traffic, doesn't want to make a mistake. You know, there's 3 varieties of cars out there, and it'd be real easy to get caught between one and the wall. So Butch is being careful, trying to keep his rhythm, and Dorsey's just open.
Dorsey Schrader about 26 seconds back now, so the lead's still growing for the 16 car with Butch Leitzinger at the controls. To pit road, Greg Kramer.
Just an update regarding the front Can-Am runners. The Dyson team, according to Pat Smith, the team manager, both of them are good to the finish. Now, no doubt they've leaned back the mixture so they're not using as much fuel when they pump it through the engine. That'll help them. They could probably run hard, but just not go any richer on the mixture. Same story with the Ferrari. When they pitted, they had actually only put in 65 liters of fuel. They had 15 left in the tank. They're getting great fuel mileage. Now the GT1 story is building as well. Let's check in with Biz.
Well, with the GT1 cars, we talked to Tony Dow, who's responsible for all the engineering at the Panoz camp. At the beginning of the race, they thought it might be close, but they got all the fuel that they needed to get in the car to go the rest of the distance. Right now, they are not planning to stop, and that's also the same story with that beautiful 36 Porsche. No more stops down here, guys, till the end, unless something goes wrong.
I'll tell you that Panoz must have an awfully stiff setup in that car.
It looks like a buckboard going down the front street here in Minneapolis. It is so stiff, but it's a philosophy, much like Indy cars. It's very rigid, doesn't use a lot of shock absorber travel. One of the reasons is it needs to keep the surfaces under the car close to the ground to use the ground effects advantage that they've really built into their design.
Johnny O'Connell taking over in the Vistion 4. The Panoz, the only one in the field today. He is 3rd overall, leading in GT1, and it's quite a gap back to the 38. Bob Wallach now driving the champion Porsche, nowhere in sight at the moment.
Well, Johnny's been able to stay with Butch Leitzinger, I think because Butch is cutting back a little bit on the performance level. Certainly Johnny's pressing would love to get his lap back, just in the event they had a yellow flag.
67 laps are on the board in this hour and 45-minute timed event. You're looking at the car that's running 3rd overall. There's your race leader. Butch Leitzinger at the controls, taking over for James Weaver. They are way out in front. Beautiful afternoon for racing here in the streets of Minneapolis. The Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota on Speedvision. I'm Rick Benjamin, Paul Gentilozzi, Trans Am star alongside. On pit road, John Bisognano and Greg Kramer, and we are watching the Dyson Ford, the 16 car being driven by Butch Leitzinger. Big lead, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Johnny O'Connell, though, in the Panoz, the GT1 machine, leading that category, sticking right there with the 16 car.
You know, Johnny's able to get close in traffic. I think the big advantage, you know, these engines are similar in basic design, except the Panoz has 50 more cubic inches, which makes big torque and really not that much more weight. So in these little short spurts of acceleration, he's able to get close whenever Butch has any kind of obstruction.
Now we're showing you the 16 car. That is the lead car. The teammate machine, the 20, the other blue and white Dyson, Riley and Scott Ford, running in second spot. Dorsey Schrader's at the wheel right now, and there's Dorsey.
I think some mornings I've seen Dorsey look that surprised.
He hasn't looked that young in quite a while, no. I will say. There's Dorsey in the 20 car. We thought he was going to be able to get up and challenge for the win. He was talking earlier before we came on the air about how much quicker that car could be and how they were going to try to play some fuel mileage strategy, but it doesn't look like it'll work to his advantage this afternoon.
I'm curious if he may be having some problem with the car. It could be a brake issue. You know, the thing appears to be accelerating all right, but brakes at this particular racetrack are a real problem, and he could be having a little air in the line that could have overheated the fluid and be subject to a soft pedal.
We take you for an onboard look down the long main straightaway here in Minneapolis. There's Dorsey to the inside of one of the BMWs. On board with the 6 car.
I'm sure he waved at Brad Simo as he went by. Good friends that they are.
Former teammates in Trans Am competition. Dorsey in the 20. Running in second overall. Getting close to the finish. We've completed 70 laps, about 10 minutes of racing left. We show you our Toyo Tires overall rundown here this afternoon. The Weaver and Leitzinger 16 out in front. The Schrader and Elliott Forbes Robinson car in second. The Bob Wallach driven 38 Porsche now in fourth overall, second in GT1. And we show you the rest of the 18 car field. Nobody has dropped out. As you've mentioned, Paul, you're so surprised we've had no cautions, not even an area caution on the racetrack.
Not a yellow flag for any kind of reason. A little bit of a debris flag earlier when the 07 Porsche got into the wall, left a little headlight lens out there. But this is the cleanest GT race we've seen all year, and that's great for the competitors. You don't want to have artificial reasons that a guy behind you has an opportunity to bump you or pass you. So the only one wishing for a flag right now is maybe Brian, who wants to get close to those other guys in GT2.
A couple of weeks ago at Mid-Ohio, the last time we brought you the USRRC here on Speedvision, again, that race went green all the way. So these drivers are working on quite a streak of time that they have not had a full course caution.
Rick, Johnny O'Connell's closed back in on Butch, and he's really pushing hard. I don't know that Butch is trying as hard as he might because he doesn't want Johnny to get by to get his lap back.
O'Connell is third overall. He's leading GT1 now after taking over from Doc Bundy. Remember, early Bundy spun and clipped the wall. Obviously, it didn't damage the car very much, but it caused the car to give up the lead in GT1 to Terry Boutsen in that 38 car, the champion Porsche GTR1. They now have not been able to get up and contend for the GT1 lead against O'Connell. Bob Wallach took over the car for the second half of the race, and he just hasn't been able to get up there and run with O'Connell at all.
It may be that Bob's car could have a mechanical problem. I don't think that he had a hard time adapting to the racetrack. He's driven so many kinds of cars in so many places. Johnny, on the other hand, is really familiar with these cars. The heat environment in the Panoz, which is what a lot of the other drivers comment about, is not nearly as bad as it was for him in the turbocharged Nissan when he ran in the GTS series with Steve Millen.
This is, of course, a closed car that they're in, and it's really closed up tight. I understand the dimensions in there are not very big at all.
It's a small cockpit inside. It's a carbon fiber tub car, but I really think that a lot of these guys complain too much about heat. Some of the competitors in the NTB Trans Am today said, I wish I had a cool suit. At 48, I don't even want to own a cool suit.
Well, of course, if the cool suit stops working, it becomes a broiler oven. So that's a problem for many guys there. Laps are winding down here at Minneapolis. The 8 car, Scott Schubert and Henry Campherdam. We believe that's Campherdam at the wheel now, the supporting that Can-Am machine. They've been running nicely. They're 5th overall, and they should be 3rd in Can-Am. Looked though as though there might be a problem in that car a moment ago, but it looks like they're at speed now.
It could have been an overheating condition. You know, there's not a lot of chance for air to go through the radiators. He could have pushed a little oil out of breather. I don't see any real implications of a problem in the car right now, except that GT1 Porsche is right behind it.
That's the first look we've had at Bob Wallach in that machine in quite some time. The 38 running 4th overall. There's a couple of laps difference. The 8 car is 3 laps down to the leaders, the Dyson number 16. The 38 car is only 1 lap down and quite a bit of change behind that 1 lap.
You know, it's real good to see STP involved in road racing. They've had a wonderful reputation throughout the motorsports industry for being involved in good cars, and certainly with the Petty in the Winston Cup Series. But Champion Porsche, who is really behind this effort, made a nice arrangement to bring STP with them.
And a good run for this team after all the trouble they had earlier in the weekend. Yesterday, practice and qualifying, the car caught fire. Back end of it burned up. The crew worked till 3 o'clock this morning to get them on the racetrack. We'll be right back in a moment. Welcome back to Minneapolis, the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota, the USRRC Can-Am and GT machines on Speedvision this afternoon. Rick Benjamin with Paul Gentilozzi joining us today. On the road, Greg Creamer, John Visignano. There's your leader, the 16, the Dyson, Riley and Scott Ford. Butch Leitzinger driving. James Weaver started the car. Leitzinger jumped in, and he has built the lead over the team car, the 20. Dorsey Schrader, Elliott Forbes Robinson in that car running 2nd. The Panoz back to 3rd. Johnny O'Connell in the 4 car ahead of Bob Wallach now in the 38, the champion Porsche. That's the battle for GT1 honors. Henry Campherdam and Scott Schubert running 5th overall, and they are 3rd in Can-Am. And we show you the rest of the field here as the laps wind down. Got about 6 minutes of racing left, so probably another 3 or 4 laps to the checkered flag today. And boy, I'm just so impressed with Johnny O'Connell's run in that Panoz.
You know, John hasn't had a lot of test time. You'd like to be able to mold the car to your particular likes as a driver. He comes into this team as a guest driver. They have some wonderful professionals normally driving it, and I'll bet you he's around for the next race. He's done a great job.
Sure has. Now, these teams get some time off. They don't go racing again until Watkins Glen, and that's several weeks away, so there'll be some regrouping and some adjustments made for the USRRC competitors between now and then. You've got a busy Trans Am schedule, though. Cleveland in less than 2 weeks.
2 weeks. We got to go home and get ready for that, and then we do 4 in a row. So we've got an important preparation period. We go to Three Rivers, Watkins Glen, Elkhart Lake, and Grand Rapids.
First time at Grand Rapids, street course event coming up. And what's the track look like up there?
It looks a lot like this. It's got one straightaway that's maybe almost as long as the main, so we get 2 good acceleration zones. And that city has gotten behind this road race better than any other city I've ever heard. They're sold out.
Wow. It'll be great to go up there. Speedvision will be bringing in coverage of the NTD Trans Am, of course, on that weekend. There's your lead car, the 16, the Dyson Ford. Butch Leitzinger at the wheel of that car. Some of the other cars moving over. There's Johnny O'Connell in the Panoz as they lap by some of the GT machinery.
27 seconds of margin. At this point, Dorsey is just going at an even pace, hoping that the 16 car, Butch Leitzinger, will have to stop for some fuel. I hope for a 4 when I got 17.
Anything can happen in racing, as we all know, but at this point it certainly looks as though Leitzinger and Weaver have been dealt the strongest hand of the day by far. And one of the BMWs moves over the 10 car, taking plenty of time to let the leaders go by. On board with Mark Simo in the 10.
There's that 07 car that's been in the battle all day. Law's out of the car and his teammate in.
They are tough. They are 11th overall. Now, with all the jockeying for position there, we've had a couple of changes. The 10 right now in GT3 is the leader. So the BMW's gotten the GT3 lead back. The 6 in GT2 back right behind him, leading in that category. Here's the Tom Volk Jarrett Schrader Can-Am car threading the needle through some of the GT machines.
Well, that could have been a bad wreck. You know, that is the downhill left-hander on the way to pit straight. A lot of camber in the road. It's a real tough braking spot. Could have been a big accident.
Now, this is not for position. The 16 is the race leader. That's Butch Leitzinger and that Dyson Ford. Right behind him, Johnny O'Connell in the Panoz, leading in GT1, but 3rd overall. The other Dyson car is 2nd in the race, about 30 seconds behind, with Dorsey Schrader at the wheel. O'Connell doing a great job, though. He's run a beautiful second half of the race in the 4. He's just been right in the tire tracks of Butch Leitzinger really since the pit stop.
Well, you know, Butch has developed as a professional. Everybody knows about the Leitzinger family. His dad, Bob, running a very successful championship GTU car. It's wonderful to see him having this success, and I hope it leads to something even bigger and better for him.
Good battle, though, between these two cars. You mentioned, Paul, that O'Connell wants to get the lap back, get back on the lead lap. Only a couple of laps to go. Time certainly running out. This is a 1 hour and 45-minute timed event here. And if O'Connell could get on the lead lap, that would be quite a triumph, really, for them.
Butch will pick up the pace if he has to. He doesn't want to go any. Oh, no, here comes O'Connell on the inside, under braking. Let him go, Butch. He can't do any damage now.
So the Ford car will go by. We show you the Can-Am standings.
Last lap.
O'Connell will get back on the lead lap as they come around to take the checkered flag next time around. Your leader there, the 16, Butch Leitzinger and James Weaver. They led just about all the way, gave up the lead on pit stops briefly to their team car, the 20, and then to the 38, the champion Porsche, which is back in 4th overall and 2nd in GT1.
Butch and Johnny have been teammates before, and I'm sure they have a lot of respect for each other. For Johnny to finish back on the lead lap is important for the team. You don't want to say I was a lap down in 3rd. So Butch now could coast, let him go by, not worry about who's behind him or around him, and bring the car home to the victory.
They'll run 79 laps here today in the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota, the USRRC's Can-Am and GT machines. And this is not the end of the racing day here. There will be a Formula Ford 2000 event still to come. So the fans here really getting their money's worth on a Sunday afternoon as we watch Leitzinger take the 16 around the final couple of corners.
Well, all the fans that bought a ticket for yesterday's event at the racetrack got to go to the baseball game last night and see McGuire hit his 36th home run.
There's the white flag over the 16 car. So the white flag out this time by. We've got one more lap of racing this afternoon here in Minneapolis.
This is when you hear all the noises in the world. You hear the gearbox noise, the brakes squealing, the engine might miss just a little bit. I'm sure he's composed, but very concerned about doing this one last lap right.
If the brakes are a little mushy, you take a little extra care with that pedal. Huh?
You can't be too careful at the last lap. We've seen a lot of competitors make mistakes at the end of a race, and it's a lot worse when you're not racing with someone because all of the elements of the car suddenly come into your environment you're focused on.
Let's watch as Butch Leitzinger takes the 16 around. He's all by himself. He's let Johnny O'Connell go off now that the Panoz has gotten by. Leitzinger just taking it easy with a 27-second lead over his teammate, Dorsey Schrader.
Well, the Dyson juggernaut really has picked up speed. It would be hard for any of the other teams in Can-Am to knock them off the throne they've developed.
Leitzinger took over the car a little bit past halfway from James Weaver, who started today. We told you how Weaver had not been well. Crew already applauding their driver. Around the final corner to the main straightaway. Checkered flag will wave over Butch Leitzinger and the 16 car. The winner here this afternoon of the USRRC Can-Am and GT round at Minneapolis. So congratulations to the Dyson team. They run 1-2 once again. Butch Leitzinger and James Weaver take the victory here this afternoon. Congratulations too to the other category winners. There goes the Porsche by. We'll take a look at Dorsey Schrader, our colleague in the broadcast booth for Trans Am coverage, coming down over the stripe and taking the checkered flag in second spot today. He and Elliott Forbes Robinson finished second after winning in Mid-Ohio a couple of weeks ago. So the checkered flag falls over the Dyson machines. We'll come back to talk to the winners, show you the final standings here from Minneapolis in just a moment. Our coverage of the Sprint PCS Grand Prix of Minnesota has been brought to you by Toyota. Every day belongs to you. Make it count. Toyota. Every day. Well, we've seen an interesting USRRC round today. The overall win and the Can-Am victory to the Dyson cars. The 16 and the 20 finish 1-2. Butch Leitzinger hopping out of his machine in victory lane. Let's go downstairs to Greg Kramer.
Well, we're ready, and first thing Butch did was, well, of course, he blipped the throttle as much as he could a couple of times to celebrate. Then he ran back and shook Dorsey Schrader's hand. And Butch, you beat Dorsey Schrader on this track after the speed and the time that he's shown. Obviously, when you got in the car, you were just able to ease away. Nice job.
Well, James did a fantastic job of getting the car in the lead, and he had a great setup on it. And Dorsey came out on the track, I think, about 20 seconds behind, and actually closed in on me quite a bit. But unfortunately, James was able to give me a good cushion.
Yeah, he didn't. If he was ill, he certainly didn't show those effects. And obviously, the car was in pristine shape when you got it, too.
Absolutely. I think he was just it was an act that he was sick anyway. I think he just wanted to sleep in this morning.
He's certainly been known to do that before. Have a little fun. Butch, congratulations. Another win for the team. Got to be very proud.
Excellent. To have a 1-2 for the team just shows how organized the whole team is and how what a close-knit unit they are.
Well, Paul, you made that word known before, organization. Nice job.
Butch Leisinger, a happy winner in Victory Lane. Beautiful weather day. We've had a terrific Sunday of racing here at Minneapolis. Let's show you the final results. The 16, the overall winner. DFR and Dorsey Schrader come home second in the 20. The Panoz with Johnny O'Connell finishing up a nice third, first in GT1 ahead of the Porsche. Take a look at the next four in line. The Henry Campherdam machine comes home fifth overall. The Raptor takes sixth and the third in GT1. The Dolomite Ferrari comes home seventh. The GT3 win, we believe, to the number 10 car, Ross Bentley and Mark Simo. And we show you the rest of the field here as we get ready to wrap things up from the streets of Minneapolis. Paul Gentilozzi, thanks. Great job today. Nice to have you with us.
Well, you know, Rick, working with you made it very, very easy. He's been my idol forever.
Oh, yeah. You owe me a drive in one of your race cars now.
That's the deal.
Let's go downstairs to John Bizignano.
Well, a very warm Johnny O'Connell. What a great job, Johnny. When you took over the car, you were a lap down, and you brought it home third overall and first in class. What a great run.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of hard work. I'm very glad I had Butch there to dice with at the end. It was made me work real hard. But I tell you what, the guys that really owe all the congratulations are all the guys on Panoz Motorsports with the Vistian car. They're awesome. It's funny, this is only my second race, well, other than Le Mans, in the car this year, and each time I get a little bit more and more comfortable, so hopefully in the future we'll be able to run a little bit faster so I can get by that car.
Well, of course, that Le Mans race gives you plenty of experience. You are dripping wet. You got a towel around your neck. We've been talking about how hot it is inside this car. How difficult is it to run this hard in this type of an enclosure?
Well, the heat's incredible, but when you have your lap times and the inspiration of the cars in front of you, you don't get as tired as you might think. Winning's a heck of an incentive.
A lot of incentive down here, guys.
Now the Panoz comes home first in GT1, third overall. Great run indeed for Johnny O'Connell and for Doc Bundy in that car. Paul Gentilozzi, any final thoughts?
Well, we saw another great race in Minneapolis for a great charity to the Children's Cancer Hospital. Couldn't have been a better day for SCCA Pro Racing, the USRRC, and everybody involved.
Hey, thanks for joining us. A pleasure to have you. Hope you can join us again sometime soon. Paul Gentilozzi, Trans Am star and winner today with us in the booth. For Greg Creamer and John Bizignano on pit road, our congratulations.